We are gathered here today to mourn the loss of an amazing game console. Today, we are mourning the loss and announcement of the Stadia.
Don't date the episode.
Murph, what were your fondest memories of the Stadia?
The PAX before last, there was a huge Stadia booth, and they gave me a free hat for filling out a questionnaire.
Theomeny or Casative, but I believe you go by Theomeny primarily. What was your favorite memory of the Stadia?
When they gave Jane Redmond a studio, and then Jane Redmond seeded that into a real publisher.
Fair.
All right, I didn't have one. I'm glad it's gone.
We'll always have Amazon Luna.
Yeah, we'll always have Luna.
Always being a very tricky word nowadays, don't we?
Do you think the Stadia controller is gonna skyrocket in price now?
No.
As a collectible?
Wait, is it special?
No.
Was there something good about it?
I don't think so, but I think it only works with the Stadia.
No, I don't think so, because I think I've already seen them offering. I can't believe we're talking about this.
Brogan, I've bought 50 Stadia controllers. I need to know if this was a good investment.
Well, they are refunding everybody for it, so if you can get it off the Google Play Store, they'll refund it to you. It'll be free.
Oh my gosh. Okay, all right. Let's get off this. Theomeny.
Hi.
Tell us about yourself.
I am a ne'er-do-well on these here internets. I do over-analysis of FromSoftware games, primarily the new ones, but also the old ones. And then I write about them.
Concise.
Yeah, no, I mean, you fucking nailed it. But we're a general video game podcast, so can you tell us other aspects before we go into your content creation? What other games do you find other than FromSoftware games interesting?
I actually play a lot of random games. I really liked Prey. As far as recent games, I play a lot of Prey. I've played a lot of first-person shooters, which people might not know about me. Warframe. I played Dust 514 for a while, and some other cooperative shooter, competitive shooter kind of things. I guess that goes back to how I started with video games.
How did you start with video games?
So, 1989.
The Stadia.
The Stadia. Everybody started with the Stadia. No, I started in 1989 with an NES, and at one point I think I had 80 games for the NES in pre-Clinton money, so that was a lot.
BC, before Clinton.
Yeah, seriously. Before Clinton, I have some VCR, VHS tape of me playing Gyruss a lot.
So there was a Let's Play before the Let's Play.
Yeah, no, it was my dad was walking around with his camcorder, just camcordering things, and I was just playing Gyruss.
Dads do that.
Yeah, dads do that. Dads do that. So there's video of me playing Gyruss at 6 years old. And then I got a Sega Genesis and I played a lot of Mortal Kombat. To the point where I played a lot of Mortal Kombat at Blockbuster for esports. Because Blockbuster attempted esports back in the early 90s.
Oh, before esports though. This was
the esport.
It was like the Wizard movie where it's a bunch of 11-year-olds being the esports.
Oh yeah, it was
what's going on here?
Yeah, I was 11. It was I was super young. I just went to the Blockbuster one day, fought some people at the Blockbuster, went home, didn't think about it again until esports became a thing.
This episode was almost a Mortal Kombat episode. It was literally this close to being a Mortal Kombat episode.
Oh yeah.
Before I vetoed it because I was like, this cannot be the first fighting game episode.
Mortal Kombat is 30 years old.
Who's your Mortal Kombat main?
I had a few mains. I was a kid, so I did a lot of Katana, who actually had a fairly complicated fatality. Melina if I was lazy because she had a 3-second hold button fatality.
Yeah.
There were some funny ones I would use just because like their ending stuff was like just funny. Like there was a Raiden one where there was a secret code in a very specific location where he would spawn a mini Raiden, and that was pretty funny to me.
Baby Raiden.
They brought that back for MK11, didn't they?
Oh, I think so. I think
Kid did. Lightning is his name.
Yeah.
It's so stupid.
Yeah. There was some really funny like hidden things that I would mess around with in it, and it was like one of the only times I bought some magazines because they had like codes in there, and then I laughed at Way of the Warrior, and then think about it until Naughty Dog decided to grow up and become the HBO of video games.
They got big.
Yeah, then they got big. But yeah, that's pretty much how I started. Like, I had long breaks where I just didn't play video games for a while, because like after the Sega Genesis, it all got really expensive. Like I wanted a Saturn, but that didn't happen because it was expensive. The Dreamcast was already kind of at that point shrug, and my aunt gave me my PlayStation with Final Fantasy VIII because she wanted me to play Final Fantasy VIII. Like that was the entire reason why I got a PlayStation. My aunt wanted me to play Final Fantasy VIII.
Just to get your thoughts on it, or
no, she just wanted, like, she never asked me about my thoughts on it. She just wanted me to play it. She's like, here you go, a PlayStation and Final Fantasy VIII, and then
we now get Brendan on for those. That's been my secret thing. Or Yup.
Oh yeah.
Yup is they're gonna come in for, an infamous JRPG that only takes 20 hours. Vagrant Story. Secret announcement. I wasn't prepared for that, but
that's not on the episode list. Broken. Did we confirm that?
We confirmed it now. Yep's gonna deal with it. Okay. I'm pretty sure he said yes.
Call schedule.
I think we're fine. Anyways, let's transition now. Okay, so in regards to content creation, what I like about your analysis of FromSoft storytelling is, to me at least, and I think you would agree with this, your approach to analysis is usually backed by good research into the historical backgrounds for the story decisions, like say an experience in alchemy, or in this recent video astrophysics, astrology, all that stuff. And then you also have the FromSoftware back catalog and retro you're able to use the same story techniques from before to inform their modern stylings. Would you agree with this?
I think that was the goal originally for going into the back catalog. I actually started with Bloodborne, and I was doing content creation for Bloodborne, and because if I backed up a little bit more, I was writing long comments for Aegon, and Aegon's like, hey, why don't you just like write these as long essays or something? And then I found Medium, and that's where I started with Dark Souls 3. But after a while, I was like, because I don't subscribe to auteur theory, especially when it comes to FromSoftware, which it seems a lot of people do. And
I agree.
So I wanted to see where FromSoftware came from, and I didn't expect there to be a very specific house style to them. I'd expect that they would dabble in this, dabble in that, dabble in this. And while they do that, there's a very consistent narrative structure and story that they like to tell, and they like to lean on, which was actually really surprising and really informed me on what their decisions are for their modern games, apart from Miyazaki, insert memes here. I knew that FromSoftware didn't just jump out of Miyazaki's head fully formed like Pallas Athena. I knew that FromSoftware had a story behind it, and that experience informs their present along with Miyazaki. So that's why originally I started playing the old games, and knowing that for some reason or another that people won't play them because of, like, let's say their archaic control schemes, because it took them until 2003 to realize that analog sticks exist, that some people will just never play their games. So I started recording them as LPs. But primarily the LPs are kind of research into how FromSoftware likes telling stories and how they approach things, and that allows me to inform how I go about my content creation, especially with modern FromSoftware games.
I was particularly impressed by this one, because this one largely this new video was called Firmament, space unyielding. I didn't know how to demonstrate the pause there,
Yep.
which to me was like largely about how fate is tied to the cosmic realities of the stars and the horrors of the vastness of space within. There you go. I had to write this stuff down.
Oh boy.
This one was particularly impressive in how much it was informed by exterior stuff rather than the back catalog. There's mentions of the back catalog, particularly like Echo Knight and stuff, but you definitely did your fucking homework on this shit.
There was a lot. There was a lot to read, especially with Elden Ring being so multi-layered and multifaceted into what its lore is trying to say. So unlike in the other modern From Software games like Dark Souls or even Bloodborne, where there might be like one or two meanings that they're going for a certain image or illusion or hint, this one seems to be going, well, it is this, and it is also this, and it is also this, and we're also keying off of this.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy how ambitious this title is, even from a storytelling perspective. Like it's hard to describe. Like when I first played it as a person that enjoys story and lore, you go to what is familiar, and then you realize how many times that they try to emphasize so many other aspects of the thing that it gets overwhelming. I was overwhelmed when I played this game, but
yeah, I mean it's overwhelming. It's a large game, and I know I'm still like booting up new builds even in private and finding things I didn't find in my original playthrough. My original playthrough is like 115 hours or so, and I know I pretty much only scratched the surface gameplay wise, but like you see, and I think Lacuna, Dia, she mentioned it pretty succinctly in that it is kind of an apotheosis of everything they've been doing. The cosmic horror that has been with From Software since maybe even its beginnings, which is pretty funny because a friend of mine had just finished throwing his emulators on his Steam Deck, and
which we'll get to later.
And
for another time. Continue.
He booted up Kingsfield 2J, which is Kingsfield 1 in the US. And in the very first games, we have the, quote, cosmic screen for From Software, because the black and white title screen for From Software is actually their second one, and they had a cosmic one in the very first games. All of these things kind of coalesce in one big video game, but it allows them to go even deeper in their associations. And, like, I found myself going into astrophysics, St. Thomas Aquinas' Summa Theologica, the Arecibo radio telescope. Like, all of these things ended up getting connections and drawing connections and then researching those connections to make sure I wasn't, like, matrixing.
Crazy.
Yeah. Matrixing, crazy. Choose one, it's probably both. And just going through there and making illusions and reading the lore that is in the game. And note, I don't really, unlike some people, I don't really engage with cut content. I don't know what you guys think about cut content, but like, it was cut for a reason. So I don't tend to
absolutely
look at cut content as something that we should take into account with regards to storytelling, because it was cut. It's not part of the storytelling. It was like a first draft that was removed and is a cool thing to look at, but not something to take very seriously.
Especially, like, I don't know how much of this is going to stay in, but like, especially, for instance, Elden Ring keeps updating, right? Or it kept updating for a long time, adding more onto quests and stuff. So it's very clear if they wanted it in and there was an issue with time, they would still put it in.
Yeah.
Like then it becomes very clear that some things were like they don't want in. Maybe they're saving it for DLC or something, but until then, it's interesting to see in a purely developmental standpoint, but I don't think it should inform large readings of the text. No.
Right.
It'd be like looking at like earlier versions of fucking The Highwayman and then going, oh yeah, this is clearly what this informs my opinion of Atticus Finch's character in To Kill a Mockingbird. It doesn't pan out the same way.
Yeah.
You know. Like
exactly. That's kind of how I see it. I know some people over on LoreTube do look at and engage with cut content. I don't really. It's not in my purview. I go with the gold master, the current version, and I stick with that. But like this last essay especially took maybe 2 months of research and writing, and it was always in my thoughts to do because of what I saw in the game, how much relied on the cosmos, and not as active maliciously in a way, or overtly actively malicious like in Bloodborne, but more passively, more like Shadow Tower. But I know people have heard me speak about Shadow Tower a lot, so I wanted to draw the audience's connection to Bloodborne at that point. But yeah, it's just, there was just so much that informs so much of what's going on. And I'm up to, what, three lore videos for Elden Ring now? It's just, I don't think I've gotten scratched nearly as deep as I can go, but I think this is...
I try to make things that is, like, because one thing I was doing, like, it just takes fucking forever. At a certain point in time, you got to know when to stop, or you got to know when to stop for the specific video.
Yeah.
And I just haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
Anyways, we can move on to things. Murph, she mentioned earlier that someone got a Steam Deck. It wasn't you, but you did get a Steam Deck. Tell me about your Steam Deck.
I got a new toy. I got my Steam Deck. So I thought I would give general impressions on that, because I know it's kind of the hot new tech this year. Number one, it's much lighter than I thought it would be. Like, this thing, it's a big old console. It's not really something I would ever pull out on, like, a bus or anything.
How is it compared to the Switch in weight?
I think sometimes it feels lighter than the Switch, which is odd. Like, I'm benching both right here. I'm doing curls. And
it's like the fucking SpongeBob with the squeaky toys.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're really lifting weights, bud.
It's fairly comparable. One thing I do want to call out, I got the middle model with the 256 gigabyte internal storage. The one above that with the larger storage also says it comes with like a carrying case and things, but the model I got came with a carrying case, and it's a very nice carrying case. It's just the one with the larger storage comes with a larger case that you can store like power cables and stuff in.
Is it as big as a Game Gear?
It's been a while since I've seen a Game Gear. I think I've seen them side by side, and I think it is comparable. The design is very nice. Like, the shoulders sort of curve inwards, and they rest very nice in the palm. It's very, very nice to hold. It does get hot. It gets very hot depending on the game you're playing. And if you're touching anywhere other than where you're meant to be holding it, you can feel the heat coming off of the console. It's got a top vent, and sometimes I'll, like, tilt it forward and feel the heat blast in my face. It's a very nice console for staying warm in the winter, I assume.
Jeez.
It probably yields as much power as a fucking... Game Gears took, like, 6 AA batteries and lasted 3 hours. How's the Steam Deck on power?
So, power-wise, I think that's its biggest failing. That's the thing I've seen most reviews call attention to. This thing, like, on the base, out-of-the-box settings, this thing maybe has, like, 3 hours of power.
So it's just like a Game Gear.
Know, depending...
Yeah, just like a Game Gear. Game Gear 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, depending on what game you're playing. Like, I never got this to play, like, Elden Ring on the go. It's supposed to be primarily my Stardew Valley machine, plus other indies. Things I would want to play lying down in bed. But it's got a real nice UI. It's I was expecting that Steam Big Picture mode they have for, like, desktop. No, this is a different UI, and it's a very slick, very navigatable UI. You can access, like, all your Steam collections and things. There's a desktop mode, a browser, yada yada. As far as games I've tried on it, I've run some indie games. Those all run fine. Civ 6 runs like a dream. The controls are highly customizable. You've got so many different, like, things you can press on this machine, from, like, the trackpads. It's got 4 paddles on the back, and you can program those all to varying degrees, like, to an extent of, like, when I hold down B and Y together, that is a input. If you want to, like, go real in on, like, something that doesn't usually have a controller, like an RTS or something. So that's all pretty handy. I tried, like, they break down the games into different categories of, like, verified playable on Steam Deck, and then just, like, playable but not really optimized, then Steam hasn't checked the game at all, and then, like, certified not playable. And I tried something that's, like, hasn't been tested. I tried Age of Mythology, which is an RTS. I'm very familiar with it, and it runs like, you know, how you can get Doom to run on your smart fridge.
Gotcha.
Because at its core, it is just like a handheld PC. But using the trackpad for mouse and then the shoulder buttons for left and right click, I was able to do a match against AI on easy pretty handily. Like, I was surprised at how quick I got used to the control scheme. It's nothing I would really, like, pull out and kill time with, but I am curious to see, like, a verified RTS on this machine.
How much is a Steam Deck now?
It varies. This model's like $500.
That sounds worth it to me, though, because like the Steam Deck is really impressive to me still. Like, even with everything you just said,
I'm pretty impressed by it. Like, I did test some like higher end games. I installed the best 7 out of 10 game, Days Gone, and tooled around with that, and that runs pretty damn. I got a clean 60 FPS. The game looks good. Like, even going up, I picked that because the zombie hordes, I wanted to test like its processing. No, I went up against a horde. It kept a clean 60 FPS. It's pretty impressive, and because it's a Steam system, you can actually just stream from your desktop if you're in like the same house to the Steam Deck. So the computer takes all the processing power. So I uninstalled Days Gone off the Steam Deck and just streamed it from my PC to the handheld.
Is this the start of a new like market? Because I know Razer's got a very similar handheld console coming out.
I think definitely since the Steam Deck was revealed, I'm seeing a lot of like knockoff third-party versions. Like, I know there's a lot with like Ryzen processors and things. I follow the channel ETA Prime on YouTube, and it pretty much exclusively covers like different forms of emulation machine. And it seems every week he's doing like some new variation on a Steam Deck. One thing I did test was, since this is effectively a PC, that means you should be able to get Sony PlayStation Now and its streaming services, streaming from the PS4 to your computer.
So this is like 3 steps removed for the sake of playing Bloodborne.
Yes, I played handheld Bloodborne. I played Bloodborne in bed, cozied up. And, you know, it plays. It does play. The issue is that you have that, like, issue of you're streaming it.
Yeah, it's input lag.
Yeah, so there is... I didn't really notice input lag. What I did notice was stuttering. Like, every 10 minutes or so, it would stutter pretty noticeably. But I was able to go through Central Yharnam just fine, albeit with a New Game Plus character. So, yeah, I was killing everything in one hit. And I went up to Gascoigne and beat him. You know, it works, and I wouldn't really continue playing it this way, but if I were to start a new playthrough of Bloodborne, I could see instances where I'm like, I don't really want to be playing on the TV right now, I'm going to go lie down or go in a different room, and I could just very easily pick up my Steam Deck, start the streaming program, and continue from there, kind of like a Switch.
I think that's the most impressive part, is the fact that this is basically a mini computer that is powerful and meaty still.
Yeah.
So like, dang. As Gascoigne would famously say in Bloodborne, that's a spicy meatball.
Yeah. Very spicy.
Oh, the meatball, it sings to me.
Okay.
I haven't tried any emulation on it yet, but I do know there's a third-party program called Steam EMU that was made like specifically for the Steam Deck. And also RetroArch is just on Steam now. So I'm going to test that at some point, but theoretically this should play up to like PS2 era just fine. Like I've seen gameplay of Dolphin Emulator. It runs very cleanly.
You should do just fine with pretty much, maybe even RPSS 3, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I've had lower end laptops before be able to run PS2 games pretty okay. Anyways, and final thoughts, Murph, or are you good?
It gets around. I mean, if you're willing to wait the time, like I bought this in March and it didn't get until September, but they're stepping up production. I think if you're in the market for something that's like this, price wise, I don't really know. You know, I don't really want to say like a hard yes, it's worth the $500, but for me, who doesn't really make a lot of big purchases every year, This was definitely worth the investment for me.
Plus, if you get it on the right credit card, you can get extended warranty, which is nice.
Oh.
Hey,
Yeah.
that's I guess the dream.
But I mainly got it to play small indie games on. So, Brogan, do you have a small indie game to tell me about?
You tried so hard to segue. I love. That's why I love you, Murph. That's why I love you. I played the Outbound Ghost, which is I don't have any notes on it in terms of like who developed it or whatever, but it recently released this month. It's basically a Paper Mario independent similar game. So like it's got the paper style for the models, but there is 3D backgrounds and environments, and then the battle system is almost entirely based on the original Paper Mario systems of like reaction timing for the attacks and party members, etc., etc. And this reminds me of, and I played this way back in the day for the Daydreamcast, Bug Fables. I mentioned that one, and that is also a Paper Mario alike. And I don't think either of them hit what I'm looking for out of a Paper Mario, but I get the feeling a lot of people would love it. I didn't like beat this game, and I didn't beat Bug Fables either. But I think I like Bug Fables more. I think my issue is, especially with the Outbound Ghost, is there's a heavy emphasis on the combat encounters. They are very impressive in terms of number one, customizability. So like even when you start the game, you have many options for difficulty. There's many different bars or different options for you to customize the thing for your liking. Like you could even turn off battles completely for the sake of enjoying the story, which I probably won't comment on because I didn't finish it. But you can do that stuff for the battles, and then for the actual battle systems, it's like the badge thing expanded into a completely different, fully formed concept. And so that stuff's really, really cool. I think what gets to me about it is, number one, that focus on combat. And number two, I guess I'm trying to find the way to articulate it. You reset health after every battle, no matter what anyways.
Okay.
So with that, it becomes very clear that the battles themselves are very specifically tailored and curated for the experience.
Yeah.
And
so it promotes
way,
riskier strategies.
Yes, and stuff like that. And I can appreciate that. But I guess with the amount of customizability, I found it hard to appreciate the design in some ways. I think the only way to truly appreciate the design of the battle system is to be in love with the battle system. And that's not actually why I play a Paper Mario. I play a Paper Mario for sort of the totality experience. My favorite Paper Mario is Paper Mario 64, by the way.
Yeah.
And the charm of it and all of that. And I think Bug Fables captures it more. A good example here is Bug Fables also allows you to customize difficulty and all this stuff, but it doesn't do it through bars in a menu. It does it through a singular charm that just increases the risk reward. That's really it. So that way the design is still tailored, but then also the health carries over and all that stuff. So you're still playing a more fundamental experience there.
Is the story like charming at all? I mean, it looks like it's about like a cute little ghost. However, the Steam description says battle using figments of your personality.
Okay, so basically, I was going to get to the party member aspect, which I can feel more confident in commenting on, but you play as a ghost with amnesia going around a village of all ghosts. Everybody has died, and they're ghosts who have yet to pass on. So, like, basically the quests of the game are you helping ghosts pass on into the next life or whatever.
And the twist is you're the cat.
I think what got to me a little bit, and maybe this is a minor complaint, but I also felt it with Bug Fables. I don't know, maybe this is just a me thing, but I find that bugs and the cloud ghosts are a little too, I don't want to say the word generic, but they go into a zone where it's as if you played Super Mario RPG and every character was Mallow.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily like
I do see that looking at these screenshots, is that the main character doesn't look... it's just a blob.
The enemy designs have more variety to them, but in that sense, yeah, it goes into generic stuff. But then when you go into the party members in actual combat, you don't fight with your ghost. You fight with, as you said, feelings. So then you develop feelings, and it's never really communicated how you get those feelings other than story progression most of the time. So you're just kind of going, and then you get a new one, and you're like, okay, that's cool, I got a new one. And then, it functions like Pokemon in that sense.
So the party members don't have character. They're just a thing you unlock.
Yes.
Oh, that's just... Okay, that's what I want from a Paper Mario.
Bug Fables does it more, where the actual party members are able to do things and interact with each other. I think Bug Fables is a much more fundamental Paper Mario experience. I was still felt like it was lacking, but if you said that, I would recommend Bug Fables to you. Another good example is, at least from what I played, the attacks from every single party member during combat have the same reaction bar. You do the same thing. Versus in another Paper Mario RPG or any others, each character would have a fundamentally different attack control for you to use for timing. So there would be a different timing mini game for every character.
Okay, yeah, that does sound disappointing. So it just leads to every battle feeling the same, huh?
A little bit. I mean, I think the changes and the thing to appreciate is the complexity of the battle themselves. And then, as I said, each battle does feel curated in terms of the mob and engagements. So, you'll appreciate how difficult a battle can be sometimes. But that being said, I don't know. It just missed the mark for me.
Okay. Well, we've got a game with a question mark next to it, so I don't actually know if we're moving on to this.
Theomeny, did you want to talk about Déraciné? How do you even pronounce it?
It's Déraciné. It's French.
Go ahead.
Speaking of games that are about ghosts, I played a game about fairies, who are kind of like ghosts.
Yes.
So, Déraciné is kind of like a strange game in the modern FromSoftware verve, in that it's almost completely ignored. It's for PSVR and requires the full PSVR setup, including the 2 lollipops, which are deeply annoying.
I haven't heard anyone talk about those.
The lollipops are deeply annoying in that they, if you look at them wrong, they run out of battery, and you have to go figure out a way to charge them. Anyway, so Déraciné is a FromSoftware VR game in Unreal 5, which immediately shuts down a lot of people's yelling and screaming about how they're still on the old engines, because they do have experience in Unreal. They just choose not to. And it is a game about grief. And it is a game where you play a person, and I'm trying not to spoil it in case you decide to play it yourself one day, who finds family and then realizes that their very existence around that family is harmful and breaks a cycle which is essentially self-obviating. But you are also a child in a world basically populated by a bunch of children who are in their good-hearted nature. Each one of them has a very well-designed personality, and they're all warm-hearted children in this Victorian sort of esque. People wanted it to be a Bloodborne sidequel. It's not. Because they are so good-natured, because they are all so warm-hearted, it makes the horror and the growing realization that because it's VR, it's extremely immersive. What you were exulting in, what you were able to do at the very beginning, is the means of their destruction. And it is one of the games that has made me cry. I'm not even going to front about it. There is a very particular scene where, unlike I don't know if you guys have seen the movie La Jetée, which was remade into 12. Yes.
I have a film degree.
There you go. We're bringing it up.
We're bringing it up. It is. The game itself is like La Jetée. Everything is very still. And the VR movement in Déraciné is teleportation. So you can, if you don't get and since it's not movement simulation, it doesn't make movement sickness happen that often because it's all teleportation. But because it is, everything is still except for when you're solving puzzles. It is very much a bit like La Jetée in that way. Except for one very horrifying, like, it's not horrifying in that it's, like, scary. It's not horrifying in that there's gore. It is horrifying in that these people that you have realized have become people you really like. They're good kids, and you want to see them happy. And at this one moment, you see the evil that has snuck in around the edges. It's heartbreaking. And it is one of those games that has made me cry in that way. And I've come back to it finally, actually, after 2 years, because I got my PS5 last summer, and like I set it up, but like didn't have the means to like charge my stupid lollipops. I didn't get to play it until
charge my lollipops.
Charge the lollipops. Like, okay, if the PS5 only has one USB-A port and one USB-C port in the front. Both the lollipops, and there are two of them, frustratingly, are both USB-A. And out of the box, the PS5 will only set out power for 3 hours. You need way longer than that to charge one of the lollipops.
Oh.
So
I see.
So
there's a lollipop bottleneck.
Yeah, there's a lollipop bottleneck. It's because you need them because the lollipops become your hands in the game. They are literally hands in the game. And like a lot of FromSoftware storytelling, they really go ham on the ludonarrative dissonance because they really leverage the immersion that they were able to achieve with that to basically draw you in as a character, a very specific one. And yeah, it's a great story. It's heartbreaking and it is heartwarming in kind of equal measure. And the terror of it kind of sneaks in like a thief. And I think it's actually maybe the most horrifying of the modern FromSoftware games, only because you attach yourself to these kids very quickly.
There's a personal level.
Yeah,
versus the distance.
Exactly. There's a very personal level where you are attached to these kids. And there's a hidden kind of Easter eggy kind of thing, like a challenge to find all of these coins. And when you drop in all of these coins in the special piggy bank, it opens up. And what opens up is a small ring for your pinky. And then you realize that this ring is on every one of the children's hand because the ring is symbolic of their familial bond. And you get one. And you are able to put it on your own finger. Like, it really goes ham on that, like, that kind of
It wants you to build
immersion.
a family unit, and then it uses that to tear it down.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's actually the most horrifying of the FromSoftware games, and I'm really mad that it got summarily ignored, or like the gaming press from the time was like, I don't understand, it's kind of janky. I sit on the listen, I sit on the floor. I actually don't stand when I'm playing VR. I sit on the floor. I've never had the problem that these people have listed playing Déraciné. I think it needs a fairer shake than what it got.
Well, I mean, it's also so tough because, like, the way you describe it in the content, like, I think every aspect of the game sounds awesome in that sense, and especially in terms of appreciation, but it also feels almost like it was doomed from the start.
Yeah.
Especially in terms of audience expectation and even technical capability, and the fact that they're not even going to bring it into PSVR 2. So, like, there's those aspects, and then those aspects of, like, oh, people want a Bloodborne, and people want violence.
People really thought it was a
specific
Bloodborne sidequel. Like, they really thought it was a Bloodborne sidequel for a long time.
People want specific things that's one thing I've learned about, like, audience expectations for specific developers is they want these specific things, and I think departures are very interesting and very important for developers. Like Déraciné is probably like Elden Ring is very derivative of what's come before,
right?
And hopefully, and the way you describe it, Déraciné at the very least, it may reach back to things like Echo Knight or something from the FromSoft catalog. But that being said, it is still an evolution and a divergence from what it currently is now, and people may not be receptive to it.
Yeah, they would just,
or you know what I mean.
It just didn't feel like people were receptive to it. The fact. Here's a story that is probably emblematic of what I'm trying to say. When it was announced pretty much at the same time as Sekiro. And these E3s were, I think, virtual at the time or something. It was on video. And like Sekiro got the spotlight, and then Sony had like cut off from the main video or something, and like Easy Allies was still running like their minor sizzle reel on the side, and all of a sudden there was a FromSoftware logo, and Easy Allies was like, wait, what? And like they threw it up on the screen. It was Déraciné. Like, it felt like an afterthought with US marketing. The US physical edition, which was GameStop only, was kind of an afterthought. Like,
that sounds like a lot of VR content, though.
Yeah,
that legit sounds like so much VR content. I don't know how it is like overseas or whatever, but I get the feeling even now people don't know how to market VR as hardware.
And given that FromSoftware is a self-publisher in Japan, they were able to put together a very nice package with the OST and some other things in a limited edition package. But like that, none of that happened in America because they're not publishers in America yet.
They're trying to be.
Do you think that this needs to be played in VR for like to be the most effective? Like, do you see it eventually like escaping VR and maybe finding a market on like PC?
I'd love it to, but I also know that it does need to be on VR. Like, if somebody can move it to Vive or what's the other one?
Valve Index, Oculus. I have no idea anymore. Like,
that's one of the other bigger problems is like the content for VR isn't unified on one broad platform. Like they're all fragmented.
I hear all the PC ones are kind of unified, but like the console ones are definitely not, because PSVR is like Sony saw a few peripherals nobody was buying. See also the iToy, and like hacked a solution together.
iToy is a future Daydreamcast episode.
I still have my iToy. I still have.
Oh yeah, I got it in a box.
I don't know if that's more. I don't know if it was more or less egregious than Microsoft using the Xbox install base to beta test what is now Azure Connect.
Is it because I'm liking everything you're saying about this story? I'm like tempted to look up a long play or something. Do you think that would be worthwhile, or is it something that really is best experienced firsthand?
I do think it is best experienced firsthand. I cannot stress enough that I don't know how much experience you've had with VR, but I cannot stress enough that I have no words to describe how immersive VR actually is. Even the PSVR, with its limitations and people complaining of screen dooring, you forget about that. Give it 3 minutes, you forget all about it. And looking down and seeing hands, and your brain tricking itself into thinking, oh yeah, these are my hands. Oh yeah, I'm in this classroom. Oh yeah, these are my best friends. That feeling is, I think, only available with a headset on your head. A long play is useful, especially if you know you're never going to get a PSVR, because I hear the PSVR setups are difficult, if not impossible, to find.
Yeah, that was primarily my thought.
And considering how FromSoftware seems to leave all of their releases in the dust, no matter what, I don't know if they're going to spend the time in porting this game to PSVR 2, especially since the Bloodborne Shadow producers also worked on Déraciné, and he's now at Team Ninja. And I don't know if XDev is up for that challenge.
It's tough because, like, also the way we say it, and this is going to tie into the game of the week later on, I think there's also some experiences. I'm not a person that loves watching Let's Plays. I think there is something communicated through play and mechanics, even outside of VR, and I'm sure VR takes it 10 levels above. Like, for me, Eco shouldn't be watched. Eco should be played.
Yes. Like, I do LPs primarily for research for me, but also because I know there are a lot of people who will not be able to spend the time, spend the money, or risk viruses to get these old games and play them themselves. So if they're never going to be able to play these games, I want them to be able to experience them somehow. But playing them is always better than watching.
Preferable. Yeah. Okay. All right. So Murph, are you going under?
Yeah. I was trying to think of a Sieg, it seems like it would be poor business.
Did you pronounce Segway as Sieg?
Yes, but I don't normally, if you're going to hold that against me.
Okay, continue. So.
Going under is a anti-capitalism roguelike dungeon crawler. That's the pitch.
Okay.
I like this game a lot. I'm going to come out and say that. This game has a lot of heart. This is set in a capitalistic dystopia that I'm fairly certain is Seattle. It's a
current day, not fictional.
In a world where when startups go under, see, they worked in the title, or declare bankruptcy, they become a dungeon filled with monsters, and you play an intern at a flavored carbonated water company called Fizzle. You play Jackie Fiasco, an intern trying to get a degree in design. And you are tasked with going into these dungeons to secure assets and supplies so your company does not go under.
I'm surprised it wasn't WeWork.
Oh, yeah. Well, there are... so how the game works is there's really only 3 dungeons, but halfway through they sort of get an upgraded form. You do your normal roguelike thing of going through every time it's a random dungeon, and then there's like abilities and skills that like buff you, like things where items you throw catch on fire, or when enemies hit you they get electrocuted. But you're primarily grabbing weapons out of like items in the environment. It's very much like Dead Rising in that way, where you're picking up like chairs or filing cabinets or what have you. Like one of the dungeons is a dating app where you can only communicate in emojis. So items down there are emoji themed, like you pick up a giant eggplant and smack enemies with that. The game has a very cute art style. In fact, it's meant to like evoke those horrible corporate like infographics. You would immediately recognize it if you saw it. And then every item has like a weapon degradation, like Dead Rising or Breath of the Wild, so you're constantly scrambling and changing up your arsenal. You can only have like 3 items at a time. And it's not a great gameplay loop because it's very chaotic. But it's definitely fun. It's nothing that I would get, like, too skill intensive. Like, I'd start a run and be like, well, I got good skills, so I'll see this through to the end. But, there are definitely not all skills are created equal when you find them. Sometimes it's like, when you crawl under desks, they explode. But you still, you're not safe from the explosion, so it's kind of you would never use it. Except super contextually. I think the game has a lot of heart with its story. Particularly, it's very biting in the satire of like corporatism and things. Like everything that your manager like tells you to do is at the whims of like, well, if you look at the AI generated chart, companies that do this are more likely to succeed. So you should go do that. The realest moment is at the very start of the game where you're getting introduced to your coworkers and your supervisor is like, all right, tell us your name, how old you are, where you were born, and what your deepest dream is. And your character basically says, I'm 19, my dream is to have healthcare. It's just a very fun game. I beat it in like 10 hours, and the last dungeon isn't that fun. It's a bit of a slog, and unfortunately you can't replay the last dungeon, which is an issue for me because there's not really much of a post game to this. Like, I only unlocked like 50% of the skills, and I don't really have a desire to go back and get the rest because I've beaten the game, and it's kind of has that like Zelda issue where the post game is just right before you finished the game, and that's when everything is the most on fire. So like the hub area is kind of a mess to look at.
This makes all sense. But you would recommend the game, of course, right?
I would recommend it. The biggest laugh I got is it has kind of like in Hades with Chaos, like one of those classic, like, you get a buff at, like, the cost of, like, some sort of temporary downside. And those are given to you by the Entrepreneur, who is a vampire living in the dungeons, who is literally the guy from those old, like, YouTube ads where it's the guy that's like, I'm here in my garage with all my cars.
Ty Lopez!
Yes.
The classic!
No, it is straight up that guy, because his area is his garage, and his cars are blocking you getting to his buffs, so you have to talk to him.
That's good. I dig that.
I like the game a lot. I would give it a hearty recommend. Speaking of corporations...
Yeah, speaking of fucking... Whew. I've been lightly playing. I haven't played since they added Multiversus, the Warner Brothers property amalgamation promotion thing, Smash Bros. Clone. I haven't played since they added Rick Sanchez. So
you're missing out on all the meta.
Oh yeah, I'm missing out on Pickle Rick and Mr. Meeseeks. Clearly, I wanted to like. Because I also played the other, and I never talked about this on cast, I played the other Smash Bros. Clone. That was the Nickelodeon
TMNT
All-Stars.
Smash Up.
Oh, that one was a classic, of course.
Proceed.
No, but I played Nickelodeon All-Stars, and both of them, I think Multiversity is better. Multiversus. Is it Multiversus or Multiversity? I don't even know.
Multiversus. Multiversity is something else.
That's the Grant Morrison comic, yes. Yeah, you're right. The thing I didn't like about the Nickelodeon All-Stars was how bereft of content it was, other than the bare essentials for it being a mascot platformer.
Yeah, it didn't even have voice acting at launch.
It didn't even have voice acting or items at launch.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It seemed to only cater to people who liked Melee. And look, I like Super Smash Bros. Melee as much as the next guy.
But Brawl is the best one,
game.
we're agreed.
I legit think Smash Ultimate's the best one. 100% Smash Ultimate's the best one. Brawl's pretty good. Brawl's up there. But like Brawl has things to support other experiences. What I like about Multiversus at the very least is the idea that it is built around a gameplay thing that feels kind of satisfying. It's meant for 2v2 co-op. So in that sense, the gameplay loop is fundamentally different and more satisfying. They do have 1v1 options, but you can tell the game is meant for more team synergy. And I appreciate that. What I don't like is, I don't know.
Who's the most broken character in Multiverses?
I haven't been keeping up, but it used to be Tom and Jerry.
Okay, things video games make you say.
Yeah. I guess the thing I don't like about it is the free-to-play elements of it locking characters off. And then I also don't like... Yeah, it's that weird Space Jam vibe, man. The Space Jam Multiversus...
It's just a little weird to be fighting as the Iron Giant.
Yeah, you know, it's one of those things where I think the real thing is Smash Bros. Elevates the intellectual properties they're in. Like, it's a good thing that, like, fucking Sora's in Smash Bros. And Richter Belmont's in Smash Bros. And Little Mac's in Smash Bros. These elevate the franchises, and it, you know, you could say it in the same way where it's like, oh, you know, Nickelodeon All-Stars or Multiversus promote these brands that haven't been around. Like, I'm glad Multiversus has Gizmo from the Gremlins in it. I love Gremlins. But... it feels more shallow, and it feels less earned or something. Yeah, I don't know. It's some weird a thing I can't necessarily articulate. Maybe one day. I'm going to keep playing this, so maybe I'll articulate.
Does it kind... Because this is the vibe I got, and again, it's hard to articulate. It kind of feels like if we got Smash Ultimate without Smash 64 through 4. Is that...
A little bit of that. Like, but, like, also, I think Sakurai is really important. Sakurai and I guess I don't believe in auteur theory, but like Sakurai's devotion to the things, and like just the teams in general, you could tell Smash Bros was made with a love for each franchise, whereas I don't necessarily feel that with Nickelodeon All-Stars, and I don't necessarily feel it with Multiversus. They feel way more corporate in a bad way. That's the only way I guess I can say it.
I mean, straight up, like, LeBron James is in it because he was in Space Jam 2, but as far as I know, no one likes Space Jam 2. I haven't spoken to any, like, children recently about it, but...
I like Bugs Bunny in Space Jam 2.
Yeah.
That was my only comment on that.
You better keep playing until Zaslav decides to write it off as a tax write-off.
Oh yeah, dude, and that was before the when Discovery purchased oh my god.
I can't wait for 90 Day Fiancé to have their character added. From the 90 Day Fiancé universe. Did you see that info?
King Guy Fieri and Zach Bagans.
Oh, they would add Guy Fieri.
Then I'm kind of about it.
They would 100% add Guy Fieri. They've already added LeBron.
Chip and Joanna Gaines with a synergy.
I've circled back around. I'm kind of pro this game. So, yeah. Murph, you played the Descenders, right?
I did. This is the other game I was testing on my Steam Deck. So the listeners of the podcast will know Murph's been in the market for a good train game, but I've also been in the market for a good mountain biking game, and I haven't really found any modern offerings that scratch that itch. The Descenders comes close once I actually started really digging into it. What I initially thought this was a mountain biking racing game, but it's not. Like, the trailers show a bunch of different players on the tracks. That's really kind of false advertising. Like, you'll see other players on the tracks, but they're like, it's like FromSoft ghosts. So the main, like, career mode of this is all randomly generated tracks based on, like, the theme of the area you're in. There's, like, a highlands, a forest, a city theme. And it will give you, like, different nodes and say, like, this track is stunt-focused with steep inclines, or this track is mellow and has gentle curves. And you'll, like, go through that track, and if other players are playing that track at the same time, you'll see them. That's kind of unsatisfying for me. Like, the main career mode is real hit or miss. It does capture what I kind of just wanted, which is, all I really want is to go downhill very fast and dodge obstacles. I don't really care about doing tricks.
That sounds like an iPhone game, Murph.
It
sounds like you want a free run iPhone game. You should play Temple Run.
So the sense of speed is very nice, and you can pull off some pretty, like, impressive tricks. Like, I've been able to do the thing where you flip upside down and do a 360 and then land that. Like, it all just works very fine, and this game does have some very intense, like, PS2 era energy about it. Particularly, like, in the breadth of, like, wacky unlockables you can get. But the career mode's really hit or miss. But then if you actually dig into the different, like, play modes it has, down at the very bottom there's just a thing called bike parks. And in that there are 30 different, very elaborate and large just levels you're plonked into. And these are like Tony Hawk style levels where you just ride around and do tricks and have fun. You're not on a timer or anything. And in fact, this is the mode that seems most people play. So that's where you see the most, like, other players, and, like, you're all going around trying to pull off the same jump at the same time. That's very satisfying, and that's what I've been playing for, like, the last week or so, just these different bike parks and seeing, like, the breadth of them and the different sort of, like, tricks and jumps it challenges you to pull off.
Are you a big Trials HD guy? I'm sorry for this divergence an hour into the podcast.
I like Trials, but Trials isn't quite what I'm looking for.
Okay. Because there's not much speed.
Yeah, and it's very more focused on, like... Trials is more an arcade game, you know? So it's more about, like, the execution more than anything. And this kind of is. Like, if you like, smack into a tree at high speed, your character just goes flying and you wince horribly.
Also, so there's some ragdoll appreciation.
Oh, yeah, there's some intense ragdoll appreciation, especially since you can, like, do a complicated button maneuver to just eject your character from their bike at high speed. Like I said, this game has some very strong PS2 energy, particularly in the fact there's a lot of like secret unlockable areas. Like in those bike parks I mentioned, spread across them, there are like 8 hidden collectibles, and if you get them all, you unlock a volcano themed area for the for like the career mode and things like that. Like there's 4 base areas for career mode, and then there's like 8 more that are secret unlockables, and that's very pleasant. Like, I think there is a lot of mileage to get out of this game. I just don't know if it's quite what I was looking for, and I'm not sure I would buy it at its like full $20 price. Luckily, from what I can glean, this is on Game Pass, given all the people I was playing with were showing the Xbox logo next to their name. So it does have crossplay, which is nice. So I'd recommend it for like Game Pass people to try out, particularly if you want something in a sort of like Tony Hawk Pro Skater style, but with a mountain bike.
That's rock and roll. All right, everybody, I think it's time for the Variety Minute.
The Variety Minute jingle is done.
Yeah, we edited that. Okay, so this week's Variety Minute is Escort Missions, and I did not prep for this at all. Theo, what's your favorite escort game? Escort mission or escort game?
Jeez, can I say a genre? Like,
sure.
A lot of first-person shooters have escort missions.
It's a game type.
Yeah, it's a game type, and I guess it's where it started from, and I guess where it got most of people not liking it. I guess because most...
Well, back then, instead of it being an AI, which I suppose we will get to for this, usually it's a player or playing as a character that's not incapable of things. I think of like Team Fortress 1 and then having the civilian class.
Yeah, Warframe has one, but like... Warframe's escort mission, by the time I started playing Warframe, is like, yeah, whatever, you can leave the person you're escorting behind. As long as you make it to the end, it's fine. So, like, it's kind of nerfed there, but it really feels like a lot of escort missions just got, like, its derision because bad AI and really punitive gameplay.
I think escort missions are kind of one of those things like water levels, where they get they get a bad rap primarily because the most popular examples are just really poorly implemented.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the most famous example is like Resident Evil 4, but even like I said this when we did the tier list, I said, I have no problem with Ashley Graham whatsoever. And in fact, I was kind of thinking that anyone who did complain about having to protect Ashley is just bad at the game.
I'd agree with that.
And also, the instances of having to protect Ashley are so rare, I don't really know why it got the label as a escort mission game. The other example that came to mind as, like, very much put forward as an escort mission done right was BioShock Infinite, which I'm very questioning on. Because it's not so much that you're escorting Elizabeth, she's just kind of there. In fact, I forget she's there until, like, the combat stops and she and Booker have to talk to each other.
Well, Elizabeth can't die is, I think, one of the big things there. So then it becomes just an NPC that just follows you around no matter what, right?
Yeah, and she, like, helps in combat, but like I said, I forget she's there. It's kind of like Last of Us with Ellie, which is, like, it's... I don't need one more thing to keep track of in Last of Us, but I just don't know why it's labeled exactly as, like, an escort mission game. Like, I think there needs to be some delineating on what the term means.
Have either of you played a Plague Tale?
Yes, I love
haven't,
a Plague
but
Tale.
Yeah, Plague Tale springs to mind.
Plague Tale, yes, I would say that does follow into a more... Well, Plague Tale's kind of like Ico, where it's... Your player character is protecting a weaker character, but that NPC character can still, like, help out, and they, it's sort of like brothers in a way where one can do things the other can't. Mm-hmm. It's just one of the things the other can't is combat.
Right.
Yeah. I think one big one that I realized quickly researching lists here is Dead Rising, and Dead Rising is a game I love. I love Dead Rising, and it's so fundamental too. Because like I played Dead Rising 4, and Dead Rising 4 completely removes the escort missions. As soon as you find a person, as soon as you find a survivor, they just leave. They disappear into the ether. Whereas in the previous games, it was like a big thing to find somebody and have to take them all the way back to the safe house. It was a journey. It was like a thing you had to invest time into, because time is a big deal in Dead Rising.
Yeah.
So, and it's a core part of the gameplay too. So I actually really enjoyed the escorts in Dead Rising, and even then, the AI is not very good in Dead Rising.
No, it is not. In fact, I would argue it's one of those games that gave escort missions a bad rap.
Oh no! See, well, the thing is it's at the very least nice because it doesn't get in the way of the main campaign. Largely speaking, the main campaign doesn't force you into those escort missions. Mm-hmm. It is just because of how Dead Rising's formatted. There's multiple ways to play the game, and there's a main campaign that doesn't force you to do that. And then there's like, oh, you could save every survivor if you can. You'd get a different ending. You know what I mean? So in that way, I think it's very respectable.
Yeah.
You know.
Another one I wrote down here: the end of Metal Gear Solid 3, where you have to protect and heal Eve.
Yeah.
Which, for me, is the most frustrating part of the game, because it's kind of that... I think escort missions kind of fall into that slot of, like, gimmick levels for some games, where it's like also in Metal Gear Solid, like the original, there's like the level, it's like, Snake, you can't use your weapons. And it's like, oh, so now I have to like learn to play the game differently now in like this, you know, penultimate moment. And that's how it felt in Metal Gear Solid 3, where it's like, okay, now I need to like think incredibly different about how I've been playing the game up to this point. And that's like frustrating. It's kind of like having to teach an old dog new tricks.
But isn't that also kind of cool as a design decision? You know what I mean?
It depends greatly on the implementation. I would rather a game be built from the ground up with that idea rather than changing what the game is to accommodate it.
That's a really good segue to the thing. But do we have any other ideas of escort missions?
I was thinking, like, you know, sometimes like modern Fire Emblems will not have escort missions, but they will have instances where it's like protect the villagers, and those missions are always like, they're doable, but sometimes it's frustrating. More what I was thinking is instances where the game tricks you into making it an escort mission. And again, like those Fire Emblems, they always have the unit that's like the villager who starts like super weak but has insane like stat growths. So you need to like kind of babysit them and get them like their, like, have everyone else whittle down the enemy and then have them come in and get the final kill so they get the experience. And those instances I always was frustrated with, because it's like at any moment like a mage across the map could just blow them up, and then you have to restart the save because, you know, you're playing with permadeath because you're a big boy. I think it kind of falls into that like Dead Rising scenario like you're talking about. Like the content, it's optional, and that's, I think, I lost my train of thought.
It's all good. I realized when we were talking about it, horror actually gets a good bit of mileage from this, because it's vulnerability, but it's also vulnerability in a way that you can't control, and removal of control helps in horror actually. For me, I don't mind so much like when, like, Silent Hill's a good example. In both Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill 4, you have NPCs that you have to make sure don't get hurt. They can get hurt, actually. They can't die, or else you'd get in trouble, let's just say.
Yeah.
But like they can take damage and affect your endings or whatever. In those, I think those are perfectly acceptable, and I think work in different ways. And it really depends on the artistic execution, you know.
How much the NPC, because primarily I think escort missions are done as like a storytelling mechanic more than a gameplay one. You know, it's how do you get the players to care? How do you get the characters to care about the story? of this like weak, vulnerable character? Well, you make them protect them in the game. It's young wolf and cub, baby. But if the NPCs are like imposing on the player, then they're just gonna get frustrated with the character and not form that emotional attachment. I think about like to me, like, all the most frustrating escort missions I've ever done in games are in, like, the Zelda franchise. Like, Twilight Princess, when you have to, like, protect that carriage while moblins right around it shooting flaming arrows. Man, I spent, like, 4 hours stuck on that because the stupid aiming didn't work right. And at the end, when you, like, get to the end with the characters you rescued, I'm like, I hate looking at them now. I hate that I had to, like, spend 4 hours protecting their ass. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. With that, I think we are ready to move on to the game of the week, y'all. It's time. All right. This week's game of the week is Eco. Eco is a game for the PlayStation 2 released in September 24th, 2001 in America for the PlayStation 2 by Team Eco. Eco is a game about a young boy who upon growing horns is banished from his village into a fortress. You team up with an older girl along the way, Yorda, who's a princess, to escape the fortress in the clutches of her mother, the evil Shadow Queen. I think the gameplay is simple enough that we should talk about it during the broad discussion. So, Theo, what did you think of this game?
This game is, I think, probably one of the more... It's not as glamorous as Shadow of the Colossus, as far as Ueda's games are concerned. And it's not as melancholic in some ways as The Last Guardian, considering The Last Guardian's ending. So when I first played this game back in college, so 2006, yes.
Lifetimes
ago. Recessions ago.
Uh-oh. Recessions in one lifetime ago.
2 of them by now. But I was able to play Eco during a pretty darker place in my college career. Like, it was the last big hurrah smashing party before finals, and like, a friend of mine gave me a White Russian and here's Eco, go play this game. So that's pretty much what I did for that day. And it was meditative because of the puzzles at that point. And later when I played it again, because I have the PS3 HD release also, when I played it later, so this is after 2011, I was able to more focus on the story, on top of like the meditative aspect of the puzzles. And that's when, this story of friendship, this story of teamwork, of well, we're here together and we're both prisoners, so let's try to help each other escape, which I guess is pretty much what Iko was thinking when he saw Yorda in her bird cage. It's like, well, we're both here, let's try and escape together. I don't want to say it for the second time, but heartwarming in a way, because you have this really simple story of, hey, we're in the same boat, let's help each other. And that's pretty much the long and short of it.
The foundation.
Yeah, it's the long and short of it.
Yeah, it's the foundation of everything. Murph, what did you think of the game real quick?
So this is my first time playing this. I played Shadow of Colossus for the first time not too long ago, I think in like 2014. I think it was like I finished it literally the month before they announced the big pretty remake.
Mm-hmm.
As far as Iko is concerned, I think this game is basically perfect, but in that sort of admittedly boring way where I can't really think of what I would add or subtract to it that wouldn't ruin what it is.
Yeah.
It is so like perfectly constructed. Like the only thing that I would gripe on is the camera, but also the camera behaving how it is super integral to the atmosphere of it. So I don't really know how I would go about changing it.
It's funny you mention subtraction too, because Ueda, his whole methodology is subtract until you have the essence of what you're trying to do. So he calls it design by subtraction. So he had more, and then he just removed and removed and removed until he had a very synthesized essence of what he wanted.
And also, on that same vein, I saw in an interview how he describes things like, I think a lot of times when we think of art and we think of things as expression. And to Ueda, the way he that's the director of this game and leader of Team Iko, basically. I should have said that earlier. He said he doesn't approach things in terms of creation like expression. He doesn't think of it like a book, right? He doesn't think of putting down words on a page like a book. Mm-hmm. So like in that way, that's one of the reasons why the story is minimal, is because it's much more about design, like architecting, building something. And in that way, it allows the mechanics to breathe. So in his mind, when he thinks of this is a video game about a boy and a girl holding hands and trying to escape an evil castle, he builds those mechanics, and then the mechanics flesh out, and then the story fleshes out, and then the story never gets in the way of that core concept. And that way it feels very organic. So even when there are problems, and to me there are tiny problems, the problems are easily forgivable. I think my biggest problem was Yorda climbing a fucking ladder. Like, oh my god. but like that's not an actual problem. That's just something that happens sometimes, and it's okay. And then like the camera, as Murph said, I think the camera is integral to some things, because number one, it allows you to see the vistas, and it allows you, because there's multiple buttons to control the camera as well, it allows you to zoom in to see the detailed character animations, or just in general, it feels very important. Sometimes the camera will go into a fixed perspective to show you a solution to a puzzle. And in those ways, it feels really, really good.
It feels like a lot of people, especially back in like the early aughts, always complained about the camera. All these reviewers were like, "Oh, the camera sucks," and it's all reviews from that time. It's like, "Oh, the camera." So that's pretty funny that it does that. But I really like Ueda's methodology of being as minimal as possible to let the game be the game and let the level designers get some spotlight, and
yeah.
Right.
I think a lot about like modern design aesthetics that go with like this sort of, oh, the game doesn't hold your hand, it's not going to tell you how to play it, there's no tutorial. And it's like, looking at it like a game like this, it's like, the game's telling you what to do, it's just not using text, it's using visual cues.
Right.
And I think that's something that a lot of these like uber gamers miss out on, is it's not the lack of help, it's just the difference in how it conveys that help to the player. because everything's very clear where to go, what to do. Like, you can push and pull boxes around, but there's no like way you can soft lock yourself. If you push a box off a ledge, that's probably where the box is meant to go,
Yeah, Eco's not sitting there like Batman in Arkham Knight and going, maybe if I pulled this box.
Yeah.
Subtle storytelling.
Sometimes if you like sit there long enough, the girl will point at something and be like, "You want to look at that? You want to try that?"
Yeah.
Which I did. It did happen to me once.
Did this game remind you of Myst, Murph?
It is very Myst-like. It's very liminal in that way.
Yeah.
Especially sort of like I described Myst as like, it's the quest for someone to talk to. This is sort of the inverse, where it's like the quest to protect the only other person you found in this place.
It's to protect the only person you can talk to.
Yeah.
Well, if you talk to them, you won't understand each other.
Yes, and that's very interesting. There's that communication barrier that is really cool. It allows the game to be visual, and it's not like you can't understand what Yorda is saying in her weird language. And also in the PAL version, I believe, after New Game Plus or whatever, they reveal what she's saying, but it's very clear. She's not saying complicated things. She's saying very simple things.
Yeah, she's not dropping lore in her dialogue or anything.
I mean, you get what she's saying from her emotions.
There's a lot that's conveyed just through the body language. Like when you first pair up and you exit that like initial room, and there's your first couch. Which I love that the bonfires in this game are couches. I don't know why I use the term bonfire save point. But, you both just sort of sit down on it, and you both just kind of, like, sit and, like, take in the weight of the world. And there's a lot that's, like, conveyed with that as, like, your save mechanic.
What did you think of the last, 45 minutes? The last 45 minutes, you are without Yorda. You get no save points, and you have to navigate the last section of the castle by yourselves. That was probably the hardest part when I was first playing it, and I know this was like your first time, so I'm actually kind of curious how you guys.
So there are legitimately no save points in that whole section because I kept feeling like I missed one.
Nope, no save points because you physically can't. You need Yorda to save.
You have to have Yorda to save.
Okay. She activates the couch. I see.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in that sort of undercroft area of the castle with the the water wheel and the chains, that is where I felt the camera was at its most obtrusive, particularly because it's so dark. Everything kind of like visually blended into me, and there's a lot of like having to gauge jumps with the camera not being very helpful in seeing like where exactly you're jumping like to something that like I kind of wish I had played this like on the 3DS or something to help gauge those. But as far as like once you're out of that platforming segment and then you're in that sort of the penultimate fight against those shadow creatures, that's where I pieced together what the shadow creatures are, and I had a big oh moment.
Yeah, there's a lot of moments like that in Ueda's games. It's like
the
Eco one.
I literally just had like the stupidest moment where I was like, they have horns. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah. It's a punch to the gut at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like the punch to the gut to what you realize the Shadow People and Shadow of the Colossus are doing.
Yeah. And I was gonna, I know, I've always heard that these games are in continuity. My immediate guess is that Shadow of Colossus takes place before Eco. Am I in the ballpark with that assumption?
It's not unlike Yoko Taro, who will go off on stage plays and tell you exactly how they are connected together. Ueda and Miyazaki will never. It's all implication. For all we know, they're not. But there are suggestions that they might be. There are suggestions that Momo is the Shadow Queen. But no one will ever know. It's all up just speculation, and nothing is set in a save point. Fun fact: the original Shadow of the Colossus save points are modeled after PS2 save cards. Yeah.
Really? Like
Yes.
like where you would go to save, it was shaped
They look
like
they look just like save cards. Yeah.
That's weird. That's huh. I don't know what to do with
no,
that.
I mean, to me that evokes something that's like, number one, like the save card thing communicates, oh, this is a safe spot, and the couch communicates, oh, this is a place of rest.
Yes, this is a place
it
of
just
rest.
has like a weird modern sensibility to it, right? Which makes sense because it's a video game, but like because of the minimalism, it allows a sense of abstraction. For me, this is a game where I don't really care about continuity.
Yeah.
This is a game where I sort of, you know how. Murph, you know how like sometimes you describe like playing Pokemon as a game where you fill in your own story?
Yeah.
I did that a lot with games like this or the original Nintendo Legend of Zelda, where there's enough minimalism there to where I don't need to think I'm Link.
Yeah.
Instead, I think I'm a boy in a forest.
It's a vibe.
It's a lot of vibes. This is a
Yeah.
vibe game.
What you know is that Yorda is the daughter of the Shadow Queen, and Yorda, for some reason, was entrapped in a birdcage, and she and Iko just want to get out because Iko is not going to sit in a jar until he too becomes a shadow person. So, like that's what you need to know. That like everything that happens before and after is before and after.
Yeah, it's a bottle story, and I'm always impressed with games that are able to do, like, just set in one location, like just one building, one structure. And I think this game just has great continuity, or not continuity, interconnectedness between the areas, where it makes all sorts of like physical, logical sense. Like if you did a top-down view of this castle, you would be able to ID where each area is in the game.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and they even do things like because you got to activate like two towers to like open the big doors, the front doors to get out, and both of those temples are basically the same but mirrored, and it's only very, very slightly different.
Yeah.
So like in that way, you know, what's impressive is this game doesn't sacrifice the environment's integrity for the sake of gameplay. The game is able to intertwine level design, gameplay, and the environmental realness and the living, breathing world all into a nice blend in a way that feels very organic.
The castle itself is a character. Like, you might as well equate the castle with the Shadow Queen, because the castle isn't overtly an enemy, but it isn't like your friend either.
Anytime you're inside, it is so dark and dreary, and then when you step outside, it's like the warmest summer sun.
Yep. And that communicates a lot with like Yorda, for instance. So like when you're carrying Yorda around and you're outside, it's bright, and then like that those last 45 minutes, the reason why they're so dark is because you're alone.
Yeah, and she's basically made of light.
Yeah.
Yes.
Essentially.
And the game is able to communicate this. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys get to play the hidden player 2? Because
I didn't, because I emulated this, but I don't. How would that work?
The PS3 HD remaster is based on the PAL PS2, and in the PAL PS2, a person who sets a controller on player 2 can take control of Yorda.
And open doors?
Yeah, I mean, she does the Yorda thing, but they can walk around as Yorda instead of relying on
that
her
would be
AI.
helpful in like the shadow demon fights, even though I don't really think that those are so much a problem, but
it's not a huge problem, but it's pretty fun.
Okay.
We should talk about the actual fundamental gameplay. So like the fundamental gameplay is like, yeah, you basically have to hold Yorda's hand or call out to her, and you bring her from room to room. She can open the main doors that allow you to go through places. And you're trying to protect her whenever you can from shadow beings. The shadow beings don't really want you. They can hit you and knock you down, but you're really probably not going to die from them. The only thing you can really die from is a fall from a long distance.
Yep.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you're trying to protect Yorda from being taken into the dark little abysses of the shadow creatures. So Yeah, and then in terms of puzzle solving, you'll often have to like leave Yorda alone and leaving her vulnerable while you go figure something else out in another room. And that obviously, as Murph said, involves moving boxes, climbing ropes, cutting ropes, all that stuff. So like that's pretty much it.
Yeah, you go ahead. If when you leave her alone long enough, the shadow creatures will show up because they're like moths to a flame. And
Yeah. Or if you go to like certain areas out of order that you're supposed to do them, because there are some instances where I went on ahead not realizing there was a way I could bring Yorda with me. And I would like go on ahead like maybe 2 screens, and then I'd hear the gasp and run back, and by the time I had gotten back, she was already pulled into the pit.
Right.
But then there are other instances where it's very deliberate that you two are supposed to be separated, and in those instances, you can be as like away from her for much longer because the game designers recognize that you shouldn't be rushing this.
Yeah, especially some of the bigger platforming areas where you're looking for a way to bring her across because she can't jump that far.
There's a lot of that was a lot of work just to drop a bridge. You know, it's one of those puzzle games.
Reminds me of Half-Life 2.
yes, actually.
Yeah. Where you spend 2 hours in another area just to bring down a bridge and walk 2 feet.
Yeah. But it all works just fine. Like, I never felt, like, aggravated by having to protect Yorda, because, I don't know, there's something very intensely, immediately likable and I want to protect about her character design.
There's also not a lot of stress in that game. Like, we were just talking about escort missions, and a lot of escort missions are in high-stress games.
Yeah.
Where you get annoyed that you have to do this again, not because you have to protect somebody, but because you have to do it again and prove to the game that you can do it again in a high-stress game. And Eco is not a high-stress game.
No. I think that, like, there's something the game does that's very clever, which is you move faster when you're holding hands. And that's something, like, you know, I didn't need to be told that. I just picked up on it. And that's something, like, you know, a player can just immediately intuit that. And so immediately you're always wanting to hold hands with Yorda because that means you can look around and explore faster, which means she's, like, always present with you and always present in your mind.
Yeah. And the whole game is centered around those 2 people holding hands. Despite the fact they can't understand each other, despite their like age differences and personal differences in background, they still that handhold is the image for Eco.
Yep.
What I picked up on this game is sort of like right from the start is the sound design, and I feel like this is something that's a very Japanese thing, is going really hard in on the soundscape being, how do I want to phrase this? Like amplified, softer sounds. Like the sound of your footsteps and like the sound of your birds are not your birds, the birds are very present in the soundscape. But there's no, like, the only time you really hear a soundtrack kick in is when you're saving, and the save theme is very nice and relaxing, or the brief moments where the shadow creatures appear.
That also happens in Resident Evil, right?
Oh yeah, like Resident Evil. What I was going to jump to is one of my favorite Miyazaki movies is Castle of Cagliostro. And even though that's like a bombastic Lupin the Third cartoon, it's still very subdued with its sound design. Like that climax is all about like the footsteps on the gears of the Clockwork Tower and things.
Yeah.
And that's just sort of what I noticed. You're just kind of always present in the castle in Eco.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of a Japanese thing. Silence is more silence, and not as in there's no like BGM a whole lot.
Yeah.
But
also
a lot
like
more pronounced. Yeah.
Yeah, the sounds are always more realistic, whereas like a more Western or American animated thing will have like sort of more cartoony noises just for like the character moving, like their arm or something.
Yeah, to fill in silence. Silence is not as well liked in
I agree with this. I will say a counterexample just for the sake of proving the rule. The Witness, which is also a Myst-like game, which was also covered during Myst. The Witness has like, I want to say 700 unique footstep sounds.
Oh, really?
Like in terms of, yes, John Blow was like very detailed in that ambience and environmental sound design.
Yeah.
So I think in some ways it leads to that specific sort of immersion in puzzle solving, in blending into the world.
Yeah, I think a lot of modern games have really stepped up with their sound design, like The Witness, and some other games will spotlight their sound designers and their Foley artists, and they'll show what they go through to like create the sounds that they need for certain items or weapons or guns or whatever, like whatever you think of. Like I think Warframe had some like saw sounds, not like saw as in cutting, but like a saw used as an instrument sort of thing. It was kind of weird.
Oh,
but,
okay, like a jug band thing.
Yeah, like a jug thing. But like, you know, a lot of modern games have really stepped up on their sound, and I think a lot of Western games have backed off from needing to put BGM in everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Especially since like Kingsfield will have a BGM for everything, but the BGM is because like they didn't have a whole lot of textures, and you need to know where you are, and the BGM will tell you where you are. You don't need that anymore, so...
Yeah. I was about halfway through the game when I realized that the shadow creatures don't make any sounds whatsoever.
Right.
You only know they're about because that music kicks in.
Yep.
And that just kind of makes them much more unsettling. I don't like the way they move. There's something so weirdly innocent about the way they move. And I think that just sort of ties into their origin.
Yeah, you keep trying to hint drop here. The spoiler.
Spoiler cast.
Okay. Yeah, spoiler cast. Jesus. No. But on the topic of animations, I think that's what's so cool about this game in particular is seeing the movements of Eco and Yorda. Like every movement has a lot of weight to it, and it feels very realistic and grounded in that way.
And that,
you know what I mean?
That definitely shows in because Ueda's background is in animation. Like that's how he came up. He was an animator. He was doing animation things, and that's where he shines the most. And it makes me happy to know that people have noticed that his animations for Eco are where they are, because they are extremely deliberate, and he is very meticulous in the animation. Like, Eco was supposed to be a PlayStation game. He moved up to PlayStation 2 because the animations didn't work. Shadow of the Colossus was supposed to be an early PlayStation 2 game, but they couldn't get inverse kinematics to work the way they wanted to until they released it. And Shadow of the Colossus is a pioneer in what inverse kinematics does today, because he's so obsessive with animation in particular. And I guess that's part of why he sets his stories as he does, because he's much more visual than he is a writer.
Yeah, it's very grounded. And I think the animation really helps that. Like, there are multiple instances where you hop a gap and then you have to like sort of catch Yorda hopping across the same gap, and even though it's like it looks like the same animation each time, you could convince me that it's a different animation per gap, but every time you kind of feel like I was kind of like holding my breath, like, oh, is something gonna happen this time? Is it gonna like do a cutscene where she slips and falls or something?
Oh, every time.
But that pays off so well at the end when the bridge falls.
Yes, exactly, and that's what I was thinking of, because then it sort of subverts that element where she's catching you, and it all sort of comes full circle.
Again,
good moments,
hands clasping together is extremely important as a visual leitmotif in Eco. Extremely important.
One of the cool things that I thought of when I played this game this time around was the sword, for instance. Combat's not a really big emphasis in this game. And the first thing you do when you get the sword is not like any other game would be like, oh, it's time for combat. You spent a bunch of hours with a wooden stick. Now let's see how you do with this sword, baby. Yeah. Instead, this game is like, oh, you can cut rope now.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my god, I can cut rope. Oh.
Yeah.
This is a game changer.
Yeah. That is.
It's just moments like that just like hit.
And then you get the lightning sword, and you don't even really use that for a couple minutes until you get to that like final, like confrontation. How do you guys feel about that final like boss fight with the queen?
I like how non-existent it is.
Yeah.
Like, or non-obtrusive. It doesn't get in the way. If it was real combat, I wouldn't have liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is just enough of a puzzle for it to work.
Yeah. Like, I think I agree. It's not a combat, like, there's combat, but it's not combat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think I would have liked if Yorda was involved in that climax in any way, just to really bring the message of, like, you know, unity home. But I was still satisfied with that conclusion. I think going into, like, the final, like, cutscene and everything, I was definitely, like, because I didn't know, I looked up no spoilers, I didn't know how this game ended. I was like, well, are those crazy kids gonna get out? Are they?
You're so worried.
I was deeply, because the game does a very good job at getting you to not really care about them as individuals, but care about them as a pair. You know, and I think that's extremely masterful, and I haven't seen a lot of games do.
And then they
enjoy some melon.
They enjoy some melon. And
They chill on the beach. I love beaches. I'm so glad there's a beach in this game.
And they chill on the beach. And you can find that beach in Shadow of the Colossus.
Oh, so it is in continuity, is what you're saying.
They stuck the beach in, but you have to go really far afield, but...
Yeah. I think I may have actually stumbled upon that beach when looking for the sandworm Colossus.
Oh, wow, you were really far afield, because, like...
Yeah, I missed the whole little cave you had to go into.
Shadow of the Colossus is actually a huge map, and you don't necessarily need to traverse most of it.
Yeah.
It's very small.
We'll talk about that on the Shadow of the Colossus cast.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
On that. But, like, you enjoy some melon, and you sit down, and then you try to speed run the game because of trophies.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can... There's a couple of trophies that, like, will pop if you can get it under, like, 5 hours and I think 2 hours.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's when you get, like, the unlockable costumes and everything, right?
No, there's none of that. There are some unlockable swords, I think. Lightsaber, if you, like, do...
Really?
Yeah, there's a
Yes.
lightsaber puzzle. It's a puzzle. You have to find...
Oh.
Did you guys get the mace?
Oh, I
No,
did, yeah.
What?
Yeah. There's a couple of weapons in the game that will unlock if you find the puzzle in the field.
The puzzles are dumb sometimes to find.
And then complete the puzzle in the field.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll find it.
Okay. So
like, I'll give you an example of the mace. So here's what you do for the mace. On the waterfall level, when you go up to the thing, there's like trees out in the thing. You have to like hit one of the trees enough to where you get a ball. You bring the ball into the one room, and then there's like a
basketball.
There's like walls. One of them is miscolored. You push the miscolored wall. This doesn't happen any other time in the game, really. Where you push the wall and it twists, and then you take the ball, and then you get on the switch, and then there's a box that comes out, and then you throw the ball like basketball into the fucking basket. And then you get the mace. It is a very video game.
And then you beat.
Part of me doesn't like it.
Then you beat the Rabbit King in a race, and now you can play as Waluigi. I understand.
I'm not shitting you. This is the game.
Yeah, there's a couple of like
do.
hidden puzzles, and they yield weapons. You don't need the weapons. The weapons don't really help you very much. It's just, oh look, I got a thing. I got a souvenir.
It's a dumb reward.
It's a dumb reward. Yeah.
How do you guys feel about, like, the individual puzzles? Is there one that particularly stands out, or one that seems a little silly?
I think everybody I've talked to, and I agree, water wheel puzzle. It will...
Yeah.
Wait, what do you mean? Can you describe more? I don't know what
it's I think the first time you're really outside, and you have to manipulate a water wheel, to get somewhere, and it feels really obtuse.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I would agree with that one. The first like area I got stuck in was the that outdoor like graveyard area with like the water area below it, and then there's like a pipe you got to climb up. I got so confused about that pipe because there's a larger pipe running along the wall, and then beneath that it looks like there's a hole, and I was like, okay, so I've got to figure out how to blow up this pipe so I can get into that hole somehow. That was the only time I like looked at a guide to be like, am I looking at the logic of this correctly? And it's like, no, I was completely off. You can just go back to a hole and reach down and pull up Yarda out.
Yep. My least favorite, I don't know why, it wasn't that hard. I don't like having to time things sometimes. The highest stress, you want to know the highest stress situation in this fucking game was when you have to blow up the fucking tower. You have to throw a lit bomb and you have to like hit the tower just right. I used like 3 or 4 bombs. It was very annoying.
I didn't mess that up once, even though I replayed that area a lot because I kept falling.
Okay, Murph. Oh, you're so fucking good, man.
I'm good at throwing bombs. You're good at jumping. You know, we complement each other.
So yeah, sure.
Hold each other's hand and run through the castle.
Yeah.
You'll be my Yorda, Murph. I love you.
Okay.
What any other thoughts on this? Murph, you read like half of the fucking novelization.
I did.
I want to know about this novelization.
Okay, well, I do have a fascination with video game novelization, so I did buy the novelization Eco Castle in the Mist. It's not by anyone on the dev team. In fact, it like straight up says, like the author's a very prolific Japanese author, but the preface says, I was such a fan of this game, I reached out to the devs, and they said I could just go hog wild writing whatever I wanted, as long as it sort of matched the plot of the game.
Yeah. And so they did?
They did. So this is like about 400 pages long. It takes like the first 100 pages to even get to the castle, because it's all about Eco's like home life. It weirdly, like, I don't know if this is, I only got halfway, but it weirdly seems to be implying that Eco and Yorda are siblings. Because there's like this statue of a horned knight that comes to life and talks to Eco, and is like, oh, you must be my, and then it trails off, and the entire time Eco's thinking like, oh, was that my dad? But it's also implied that the knight was like the lover of the Night Queen, which is weird. There's also other people in the castle, which sort of ruins the whole isolation aspect.
Yeah.
You know, it's not my speed as far as like the prose, and also the paperback's sort of badly formatted because it's translated.
Yeah.
It doesn't really have proper chapter breaks or anything, but you know, if you need more out of this story, like just a fully authorized fan fiction.
Yeah, this already ruined my canon. My head canon. I don't like it.
I wonder, did this novelization come out before Shadow of the Colossus, or?
Oh, that's what I was trying to look up, because there's a part where
I think it came out in 2011 or something.
The novelization, let me see if I can find, where did I drop that? This released in 2004.
Yeah, that's before
That's
Shadow
what the
of
copyright
Colossus.
says.
Wow, nice. Oh, and then it came out in English in 2011. That was.
That lag is still for real.
Wow. But anyways, what I was gonna say is like, I do think the game communicates some things. Like, for instance, this is one of those modern touches I felt was the first time the Shadow Queen, she blocks the front doors, and the way she says, like, you guys can't fucking escape, is very like, I don't know, maybe I've been in enough relationships where their mother is like, you're not good enough for my girl.
Sure.
But that is what I got from the Shadow Queen, was like, Yorda's too good for a boy like you.
It is interesting that you almost get the feeling she doesn't even care about you getting out. It's just the fact, because she's like, oh no, my daughter can't survive outside the castle. Like, that's her justification, not like, oh, you shall not escape, boy with horns.
Yeah, in those ways, I think the story conveys some nuances that I think is actually, like, really cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, it sort of implies that if Eco just abandoned her, he could have gotten out of the castle just fine and not had to deal with any shadow creatures or... Oh, he couldn't have opened the doors, I guess. Yeah.
Yes.
But he never factored to the Shadow Queen, really.
No.
The Shadow Queen needs Yorda for whatever reason, and not to be in an episode of Smothered coming soon to Multiversus.
Yeah. Did look up, what was the fun fact I found about the Queen? Ignore me. Talk about other things.
You looked up you're looking for fun facts.
Talk about lore.
Are we talk
about
you two
let's talk about the box covers.
Oh, the box art.
Box covers.
Oh, box art's terrible in the US version.
Oh, yeah. I realized I had seen this game before at a Game Crazy, but I never got it because the box cover looked awful.
Yeah. It is legitimately made fun of on the PS3 HD remaster because there's a bunch of interviews on it. And they Ueda specifically called it out as particularly terrible.
I thought it was that Skittles game, the Dark Skies.
It kind of looks like it. I think that's the problem. Is it makes it look very generic, and also it kind of makes them it kind of makes them too white.
Oh yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, Yorda in the box art doesn't even look like Yorda.
No. But like also Eco it looks like they made him into I don't know.
Like it
just doesn't look good. It just looks ugly.
With a Viking hat instead of horns coming out of his ears.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was specifically called out by Ueda. Especially since Ueda's box art that was used later is based on a famous painter. Spanish painter? That, okay. Yeah. I forget the
Imagination of the Infinite or whatever it's called.
Yeah. I think it was a Spanish painter. So it's like referencing that painting. So I'm like, it's just so emblematic of like gaming back then.
Mm-hmm. Like we need to focus on that this is a boy with a sword.
Oh yeah. It happens. It happens with FromSoftware games too. Evergrace. Evergrace is look up the US box art and then look up the Japanese box art. The US box art erases the fact that you can play half the game as a girl, because it is a 2-character, sort of like Claire and Leon scenario.
Mm-hmm.
The US box art completely erases the female character. She has like 2 different names. She's Charlene in the US one. And the US one just shows Dorius. That's it. Because even up to the mid-aughts, video games were for boys, and so here's our edgy edgelord marketing.
This game could have used more edge in it. I agree.
Okay, here I found it. I found my fun fact to bring it full circle back to the escort mission discussion. The Queen is played by a very prolific Japanese voice actress, Misa Watanabe, who was Eva in Metal Gear Solid 3.
Okay, there you go.
She was also typecast Shadow Queen Beryl in the original Sailor Moon.
Oh,
doesn't that suck when you get typecast into being the Shadow
as
Queen?
The Shadow Queen? Yes.
As the Shadow Queen.
I was really thinking. I honestly, the reason why I looked her up originally is because her vocalizations in that final boss fight made me want to double check if she had played Link at any point.
Okay, all right. Are we good? Final thoughts? Or
I love Eco. Eco's great.
Would you want a Shadow of the Colossus 2014 Blue Point remake?
As much as I don't super care about their Demon Souls remake, I didn't mind their Shadow of the Colossus remake. Basically, I want more people to play the game, and I don't really like it if they have to go spend umpteenth amount of money to find a retro copy. So bring it up. Yeah, bring it up. Fine.
yeah. I mean, for me, I don't think things are sacred. Now there's definitely arguments to be made. Yeah.
You gotta put that on your tombstone.
Yeah, things ain't sacred. Yeah. You can piss on my grave. I don't care.
I'll put that on the backside.
Yeah. You can put that on the backside of the Daydreamcast card, as you can piss on this podcast.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Anyways, what was I gonna say? You made me lose it, Murph.
Nothing is sacred. Piss on everything.
More people playing a game is fine.
The remake. Okay, what I was gonna say is number one, yeah, it brings in new audiences. There could be an argument of it not capturing the magic of the original, but then the original exists. So I personally don't mind when there's artistic liberties taken in remakes. I think that makes it more interesting or something. It'll be fine. Bluepoint specifically as a developer, but I think their game would be inoffensive to me personally.
Yeah, Eco isn't something that's going. Eco isn't going to be something that you would cause a whole lot of issue. Because there's not a whole lot to it. It's a very, very tailored, specific, streamlined sort of game.
There's very little to mess up if it's just a straight remake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That said, if there's a remake or a $1,000 game, then fine, bring a remake out. Mm-hmm. Let that $1,000 game might as well not exist anymore. I'm looking at you, Kuan. If the game is $1,000, it might as well not exist anymore. Just bring it out again.
Game preservation is very important.
Mm-hmm.
And old games are good games. That is an old Pavlo's catchphrase. We could have put that on the card. I forgot.
Yeah. The only thing I would worry about with a remake is kind of like the worry with the Shadow of the Colossus remake is they don't get the tone of the lighting right. Or like the washed out aesthetic. I feel like the washed out look is very important to both the original Shadow of Colossus and this.
Yeah.
I think they'll make mistakes if they make it, yeah. If that's what you were asking, yes.
Yeah. Their aesthetic is definitely not dreamlike.
No.
And they have that entire art department at Bloompoint now, and they need to flex it, so...
But they're making Bloodborne PC port, right?
No one's making Bloodborne PC port. No one will ever make Bloodborne PC port.
But that's what all the articles say. The weekly articles.
Bluepoint needs to make Bloodborne 2 Electric Boogaloo. That's what's happening, baby. Rock and roll. Anyways, I think it's time for plugs.
Plugs?
Yeah. Theo, go ahead and tell us your plugs.
I am both on YouTube and on Medium at youtube.com/c/casative. and theomeny.medium.com. From there, you can find my Twitter, my Discord, and you can track me down. I'm all over the place.
You're terminally online. I saw that from the Try Guys Twitter post.
I can't believe I know exactly who the Try Guys are.
I've seen BuzzFeed videos.
There were so many people on my TL going, I have no idea who the Try Guys are. I'm a cool hipster person.
I will say Ned was my least favorite. So
yeah, I think Ned was everybody's least favorite.
Yeah. Anyways,
I only knew about the Try Guys from an H Bomber Guy video because they got their sperm tested.
Oh, the soy thing.
I don't consider myself a sheltered individual, but I am always taken aback when my timeline blows up and it's some like YouTuber that seems to have been fully formed out of the ether with 6 million subscribers, like beat his wife or something.
Oh jeez. Yeah.
Oh, that's the fucking boy in a band. Oh my god, we're going into YouTuber drama.
Oh, that's it's funny though, because like of the BuzzFeed content forum people, I watched Ladylike and not Try Guys. I just knew about Try Guys, but I was like watching Sophia Nygaard and like all the other women from like the Ladylike section.
I watched BuzzFeed Unsolved.
Which of the Try Guys would you trust to lead you out of the Castle of Mist?
Eugene. Eugene. Yeah.
Eugene.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
That came fast, didn't it? All right, Murph, go ahead and do your plugs.
We got other shows here on the Twin Geeks Network. We got the Twin Geeks podcast, where they look at full filmographies of various directors. Right now, they are still going through Robert Altman, and probably will until the end of time, because that man made a lot of movies. We also have I'm Thinking of Spoiling Things, where they talk about very contemporary modern release movies. Right now, they're going very indie with their content as of late. I think they haven't really talked about like a big studio release in a while. A lot of grab bag specials. Let me see here. The Stacks, which is kind of like their own network, a rotating collection of shows, usually about film. Sometimes it's just Jack and Steven shooting the shit, some water cooler talk. All good stuff. And those are the ones that are releasing currently. We have a few others on hiatus if you want to dig through the back archives on the twingeeks.com. And I'm Murph, and he's Brogan.
Whoa. What about the next game?
The next game?
Yeah.
Did you tell me about that in the past?
Oh my god, are you serious?
Do I have a way of getting back to the past?
Okay, I get it now. Yeah, it's a link to the past.
Give him a hand. Give him a hand.
There you go. I'm impressed. That was good. With guest star Vaughn.
Yes, from I'm Thinking of Spoiling Things.
Oh, it'll be a good episode. The first Zelda episode.
I know.
So, and with that, I think we're playing out.
Yeah, no, the music's going. There's like the guitar solo part. You're gonna have to sync that up when I say that, Brogan.
No, I'm not gonna do that.